If we can just have a little bit of background, firstly, on yourself when you were growing up in Queens, in New York, and how you came really to running. It's also mentioned in your prologue of your book that you've got at the moment, Spartan Up, which you've just released. But if you just give us a bit of background, that'd be excellent. How you kind of came to the endurance race in Quebec.
So I grew up in a very organized crime-centric neighborhood called Howard Beach in Queens, where the heads of all the families lived. Don't ask me why, but that's where it was. And so as a young person, anybody young, we didn't know. That's what we aspired to be, because those were the people that had all the attention, all the money, and so you found yourself asking questions like, could you do the time? Because everybody went to jail or got killed, and so then you'd want to find out if you were tough or not. So I found myself taking cold showers or carrying rocks around the neighborhood or whatever it is, because that's how I defined tough. My mom, on the other hand, was very into health, wellness, meditation, yoga. They had a very long distance runs that she was involved in, and quite honestly everybody thought she was crazy, and now it's super popular 40 years later, but those two things influenced me and opened me up to accepting ideas like going to do an Ironman or an ultra run, or why not push yourself, why not find out how tough you are, and why not push limits. So I think it definitely comes. Now that I have children, I think back, what was it that makes me the way I am, or you the way you are? And it's definitely that environment that you grow up in.
Okay, so can you talk to me a little bit about the endurance race in Quebec? Am I right thinking it's 6 days, it was a 350 mile race. What sort of training did you do for it before you took it on, or what were the challenges for you? I'm
lucky in that my first my first attempt in endurance racing was actually the big stuff, the long stuff, 6, 8, 10 days, and I'm happy that I started there, because then the other stuff was much easier. Had I started with like 5Ks, to work your way up would have been impossible. And they were typically 350 miles, 400 miles. They included kayaking, biking, running, and I had no idea how to train. I had no idea. There was no book on it. No, I would try to ask some people that did it, but invariably I just found myself throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what worked or didn't. I loved the stairwell. Nothing like getting in a stairwell and just going up and down all day. Like
conventional hill running almost then.
Yeah, but stairs are tougher. I mean, stairs are brutal. Plus I think there's a lack of oxygen in the stairwell. I love carrying weight. I'd always have a backpack on. I love cycling with a backpack. Didn't live really without a weighted backpack. Everywhere I went I had a weighted backpack. I would do weight workouts that probably look a lot, then it didn't exist, but probably look a lot like CrossFit now. The difference being I wanted my workouts in the weight room to be an hour long. CrossFit tends to be somewhere between 8 and 15 minutes. But very intense. I try to hit my entire body, like 120, I think we do like 120 sets in an hour. So it was just pounding, high cardio. I just wanted to, I didn't know what to expect. Like, how do you train to be out there for 8 or 10 days, right? And so
absolutely, yeah.
So I had to be on my feet and just torturing myself all the time to be able to perform. What I did find was running and Bikram yoga were very, very effective. So 5, 6 years into it, I started running 10 miles in the morning with a weighted pack, and then 10 miles at night, but I would do it without the pack at night, and I would finish with Bikram yoga. And then on Saturdays, I would try to do something that was 8 to 12 hours long. So I'd go kayak in one direction 4 or 5 hours and kayak home.
Gosh.
Or bike 5 hours in one direction and bike home. But I found that you just had to get to this place that was so miserable and so dark in your training that you could emulate what it was going to be like to be out and sleep deprived, not sleeping for 8 or 10 days. So that's what I did.
Excellent. And when you completed Quebec, what then led you to consider Ironman? What was the pluses or the advantages?
Well, so Ironman came about because I really had no interest in doing Ironman. It seemed too organized for me, too methodical. But what happened was I was in a bad car accident, and my leg was torn out of my hip. I was thrown out the window of a car.
Gosh.
And And when they put it back in, and the doctor said, look, you're not going to be able to run again because it'll probably come out of the socket again. And my wife said, oh, you're not going, you're not going out in the wilderness, and then your leg comes out of your socket, there's no ambulances. And so I said, all right, well, I'll do Ironmans because there's ambulances available to you and people are around. So I signed up for a ton of Ironman just to keep the addiction alive. Yeah.
And I think you did 14 in the end, is that right?
Yeah, that year.
Yeah. 1 year you did 14?
Yeah.
Wow. What were the highlights for you, Ironman-wise? Which one? You did Lake Placid?
Oh yeah, I did Lake Placid, I did Lanzarote, I mean, just rattle them off, I did them. Now they've added a bunch that at one point during that year, my plan was to do them all. I had to get everyone done. And I was in Switzerland, and my wife said, she was pregnant, she was about 8 months pregnant, she said, here's the deal. You got to decide what we're doing here. And that was my last one for a little while.
Listen, and well, going on to that, you said you wanted to do them all. Was Kona ever?
I did Kona.
You did Kona?
I did Kona, yeah. And,
wow, when did you do Kona and how did you do?
That year I did awful. It was actually, my best time was Austria. My worst time might have been Kona. I just had an awful day. What ended up happening to me that year was I stopped training because I was doing an Ironman so often that the first few, Lanzarote, I did well. I started to do really well, and then I just tailed off and got worse because I was like, I got another Ironman in 2 weeks. I don't. What am I gonna do, right? I'm burnt out from what I just did, and so I think Kona was awful. I remember walking that run and being extremely nauseous. I don't drink soda. I started drinking some Coke just to try to get through it, and got it done. My goal was to get it done, and I got it done. But my worst Ironman was Utah. I never thought about quitting one, and I was in Utah, and I was about 6 miles in on the run, and I was completely nauseous. Again, hadn't trained, and you can't really fake an Ironman. Like, you got to train.
Yes.
But you get cocky if you've done a bunch of them, and coming from the sport I came from, you just think, well, I could just jump in, and you really can't. You got to get some training under your belt.
Hours in, yeah.
And I go over to an ambulance and I said, look, I'm really nauseous, what do you got? And they gave me, I think it was Epitat. I think they give it to pregnant women. And for the next 5 or 6 months, I just couldn't stop throwing up. And I thought, you know what, it's just not worth it. I've done so many of these things. I'm just gonna pack it in. And as I'm just about to pack it in, a woman with one leg goes by. And I'm like, motherfucker. And so literally I'm battling it out with her to the finish line, and I might have nudged her at the end. She got me though.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Just to quickly touch on the Ironman point before we move on, was there a lot of difference in your training for the Ironman, or not really? It still involved a massive lot of cycling on Saturdays, like you were saying, or was there anything specific you did for your Ironman training?
So again, I had a unique situation. I was coming off that injury where my leg was out of my hip, so my training was really to fix my body. It wasn't for Ironman. Right. The doctors agreed cycling and swimming was fine, so I found myself cycling a lot on the weekends, but I couldn't do running. I couldn't pound. They didn't want me pounding the leg. I had to do a bunch of Pilates, so I had a very unorthodox plan going into it. If I had to do it again, if I was hooked on Ironman today, I have a much more methodical system that I would apply. It's stuff that I give to the Spartan elite athletes.
Yes.
I know a lot more now. Simon Whitfield, you know the name. I was lucky enough to spend the weekend with him down in Bahamas. We got to know each other, and we were talking about Spartan Race and training. And I actually went through all the crazy stuff I just started to describe to you. And he said, you know, Joe, a lot of the stuff you're talking about is not that crazy. The problem was you didn't put it together the right way. Yeah. You didn't periodize it, and so I know a lot more now than I did.
Okay, so coming on from this, how did you then move forward to the idea of Spartan? Then what was the
it was a terrible idea because coming from Ironman and adventure racing, it seemed kind of ridiculous. Like if you're an Ironman, if you're a triathlete or a runner, who would possibly want to crawl under barbed wire and get dirt? It just didn't seem professional. It doesn't make sense. But there were some people around me that really thought that some folks would do this. And so we said, all right, we'll give it a go. You know, I'm not going to invest much money, and we'll just see. and I don't know, it was 800 or 1,000 or 1,200 people showed up to that first one. You just looked around and you said, wow, this is going to work. Like, people like this, because most of the people are not going to go do an adventure race. Most people are not going to go do an Ironman. I think Ironman has 150,000 athletes globally competing. We might hit 1 million this year, right? So it's a much bigger audience, and our passion, my passion specifically, was to do what my mom did, which changed lives. And so this would be a much bigger platform. After what I saw at that first race, this would be the platform to change lives, because it was just scary enough and just interesting enough, and certainly the accomplishment was so amazing at the finish line that that people, it would go viral, and it did.
Amazing. Well, that leads brilliantly into the next point. I noticed from the book the whole ethos of Spartan is to almost to condition them for the mud that they're going to face every day. So can you talk us through that a little bit, the ethos of being that they've been in a failed relationship, being that they've had a bad day at work and they've lost the promotion?
So the theory there was, you know, I had a construction business at a very young age, and I'm a workaholic. I was working 7 days a week, it's no surprise, morning till night. And every day when I was driving that truck, I'd look over to my right and there'd be a new person there. And the reason there was a new person is the guy yesterday quit.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't cut it. And or girl. And I thought to myself, why is it that some people are amazing and some people just can't get the job done? And then all of a sudden I found myself surrounded by Eastern Europeans. Like, those are the ones that were willing to work long hours, hard, never complained. And I was doing my own social experiment, really. And what you found when you looked into it was, well, they had a different frame of reference than the American kids had that I was hiring. They were fighting for milk. I like to use that sentence. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe. He's a boxer.
No, I've seen it.
And he's washed up. He's, let's say, 40 years old, and he's over his prime. And the interviewer says, why are you fighting? And he says, I'm fighting for milk. Like, he had no money. They were busted. Like, you can't go in a ring against a guy that's fighting for milk if you're not fighting for milk, right? So think about the triathlete or the runner that trains like they're fighting for milk. Bernard Hopkins, the boxer, he says, I fight like I got nothing in my refrigerator. And those Eastern Europeans I was sitting next to, they were fighting for milk. And so I said, all right, well, we're not that unfortunate, most of us. So how do I get myself in that mindset, right? And so what I found was, whether it's a cold shower first thing in the morning, or running, or carrying rocks, or whatever it was, I have to put myself every day, preferably early in the morning, in a place that's dark and miserable, so that I feel that fighting for milk feeling. And then when the coffee's cold, or the kids are screaming, or something goes wrong, because something's going to go wrong for us every day, right? It's not that bad if we're not dead, but something's going to go wrong. It's not as bad as what you put yourself through, right? And so that's the ethos. And
you wanted to replicate that in your races.
I wanted to replicate that in the race. I wanted to build obstacle immunity for people, because people don't. It's such a simple concept, but people don't understand it, because the entire global movement everywhere is easier, faster, cheaper, more comfortable, and the pendulum has swung too far. I mean, that was good when we had nothing. That's where it should go, right? But it's gone so far that I think it's actually hurting us. It's certainly hurting us. 30% obesity rates globally, it's hurting us.
Yeah,
right?
Very much so. So, I mean, that goes quite nicely into the point that you mentioned in your book, that people that do a Spartan race, it gives them more of a greater sense of purpose than people that have completed marathons or completed Ironman. And is that essentially your feeling behind it then? That
yeah, I mean, again, doing Ironman, and you guys probably competed in them as well, it's hard to fathom why that would be, but I think it's because the name Spartan is a pretty epic name, not just because it's our company. Think about who they were. I think it's because when you look at it, even if you're, and I know many Ironman that look at it and are like, I can't do that. And certainly they could do it, right? In Ironman, they're going to be out there 12, 14 hours. We're talking about an hour, 2 hours, 3. Everybody can do this. We've got 4-year-olds, we've got 80-year-olds. This is accessible, but it doesn't feel accessible. Like it's scary, and it's going to take you out of your comfort zone, and it's going to get you dirty. Something that we're not used to doing. We've been told since we're little kids, don't get dirty, don't play in the mud. So yeah, no doubt about it. It will. There's a story in the book. I met the head of the U.S. Olympic wrestling team, and I put him in a race, and he's literally stuck in the mud during the race. And I'm looking at him. This is the head of the U.S. Olympic. This guy's he's an animal. It'd kill me. And he's stuck in the mud. And I go over and I grab his kayak and I throw it in the water and I said, get in, right? And I push him. He comes up after the race and he said, how'd you do that? I said, how'd I do what? How'd you know? I said, wow, the world is in worse shape than I thought, right? But because we're so programmed to do the things we know, right, and stay on the rails, then as soon as it comes off the track, the train a little bit, like no one knows what to do. They get stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason this is really powerful. Like an Ironman or a triathlete, right? I've met so many of them that, like, if there's sand in their shoes or their gear isn't working right or it's a bad day, they pack it in. And you're an Ironman. You've been training like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, what would you do if you were missing your bike seat? You should be able to ride the 112 miles without a bike seat. You're an Ironman.
Cool. So moving on to the Spartan series itself then, and what you've put in place with regards to the distances. We've got the Spartan Sprint, the 5k, the Super Sprint, the 12k, and the Beast of 24k stroke, however much the measuring tape goes around the course and gets lost a little. But can you talk us through the 3 distances, what you were trying to aim for with these distances and why?
It's no surprise we're emulating triathlon, right? So I said to myself, when people come out of the feasting of Thanksgiving and the holidays, they're looking for something to do, and you don't, at least me, I didn't want to jump right into an Ironman early in the season, so you found yourself doing something small, getting tuned up, and then later in the season you do something bigger, and then your big race was at the end of the season. It was the same thing in adventure racing. So the idea was, if we were going to change people, if that was our #1 goal, we couldn't have them do something that was one and done. Like with Ironman, a lot of people train for, right, and they get that done, they're done. Or a marathon. This had to be something that you do it every year because it keeps you motivated to train, eat healthy, put down the glass of wine, go to bed a little earlier, wake up a little earlier. Let's face it, I have nothing against Ironman. I love it. But it gets old getting on your bike 5 hours. Like, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Right? So could we emulate it, but make it for the masses? And it worked.
Certainly, we've now got Dan Tuffnell, which is the Spartan Race Director for the UK, joining us.
So there he is.
Hi guys. Hi Paul.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Pull that chair over.
The chair over. How are we doing?
So, I mean, it's a question more for Joe, but certainly Dan input. The rise of Spartan's been huge, both in this country and Europe. Please, can you tell us why you believe that obstacle course racing is becoming so big? I mean, certainly from your experience in America, why is the development so large at the moment?
I'll give some input, and then I'd love to hear your thought here from a global perspective. But first of all, I think humans are humans. Doesn't matter what country you come from. We've clearly proven that wherever we go, there's interest in this sport, and I think that's because it's a human sport. If humans have been on the planet 1 million years, I think that's how old the last artifact they found was, proves that we've been on the planet 1 million. For those 1 million years, for most of them, it's only the last 100 years that we've screwed things up. But for most of the years here, we were living like the Spartan race emulates, right? We crawled in mud, we hiked, we swam, we jumped, we climbed, and so when you let humans feel what's natural to them, because it's natural, we may not realize it because we have nice sweaters now and couches and houses and heat, they feel good, like a dog that goes outside versus sitting in the house all day. We feel good. That combined with the advent of social media, a Facebook, a Twitter, where you can share that feeling, this thing exploded. Doesn't matter what country you go to.
I think Joe completely nails it. It's an intrinsic value where we all enjoy and love that excitement of, as we're children, running in mud, running in trees, and what Spartan does essentially is we do it as a team, we do it as individuals, and we've turned it into a great sport moving forward. Okay,
now you're both together. Will there be some work in between you both for the Spartan season coming forward?
Yeah.
Are there some exciting plans? Certainly when we last spoke, Dan, you said you were looking at moving some US obstacles over to the UK.
We're updating the obstacles in the fresh face in terms of the festival engagement for everyone coming to the festival in the UK is going to have a great time. Sponsorships come on big. We've got a huge sponsorship coming to the races, and the festival goes this season. I've been like Joe. I've been on a tour around the world this year, looking at the best practices in different parts of the world, and that's going to continue. And I'm desperately trying to get my trifecta in this season with everything I'm juggling internationally, so then I can, say to the racers, hey, I'm doing it as well.
I will say one thing, and Dan probably hasn't noticed, is now that I've been traveling around the world and going to all these races, is it's actually working in reverse. Not only, a lot of people think, hey, all the cool stuff is in the US. What I found just now in Prague is actually they were doing some really cool things that we should bring back to the US. Yeah. Australia's doing some really cool things we should bring back to the US. So everybody's got their own cultural little flair and ideas that, that I think enhance the creativity of what Spartan can be. At some point we're going to level the playing field completely, so it feels exactly the same everywhere with the little cultural differences, but it's probably a year away.
Brilliant. I mean, this year is a huge year for the United States with, I mean, World's Toughest Mudder is going to be in Vegas.
What are they called?
World's Tough Mudder. Fell for it, walked into that one. But you've got in Vegas, absolutely. You've got the World Obstacle Course Racing Championships as well. So it's a big year for the US. Are Spartan in the US planning anything special this year to kind of show? Because I appreciate your qualifying events anyway for the World.
Yeah. So obviously we got the World Championships in September in Killington. NBC's filming, so we're about to announce, hopefully by the time this is on, a really interesting deal with television. So that's big. We've got trifectas that take place everywhere, as you know. We're going to have an Eastern European Championship. We're going to have a European Championship. Wow. We're going to roll into Asia. We're already in Vegas, so tell those guys, nice, but it's too late.
It's too late.
I'm going to be pushing with Ben as well to Joe that we do a special European trifecta to make it. Yeah.
Certainly with Madrid a couple of weeks ago, I appreciate you were there, Joe. You saw Thomas Blanc even win it. There's a lot of interest in the European Spartan scene. There are a lot of racers over here that do want to go across and see that. So I think that's
that's an offer been made as well. I'll be sending 6 in liaison with Joe to go out to Vermont towards the end of September to compete in the Worlds.
And with the Worlds in mind, then, how do we feel? What are the US Spartan races, stroke obstacle course races like? Saw Madrid a week ago.
Yeah.
Do you think the US are going to destroy it, or do you think it's going to be tough?
As far as the competitors go?
Yeah.
You know, there's some amazing athletes that are coming into the sport that we didn't have a year or two ago, and that's because I think it's becoming recognized in actual sport. And so once you start getting some high school or college runners into the sport, even triathletes, the people that have owned this sport from an athlete perspective are shocked. I mean, they're coming out of the woodwork every week in the U.S. and they're crushing some of our existing athletes. So you just don't know. I mean, it could be an upset from any country.
And how do you feel, Dan? Is there anything?
I'd like some national pride in there. I'd like an Englishman winning the UK this year. I like Thomas very much, but yeah.
I think Thomas is really ours. He's pretty much UK based.
He's UK based.
He's more of ours than French, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you're quite right though. We've got a chap called John Albin who is destroying the UK. Dan will see him this season, probably at the Beast, and he's a traditional runner. Can do a 5k park run in about 17 minutes, 16 and a half, and he just flies around courses at the moment. He's unbelievable.
Once these people are hitting the 10,000 hours, it's just flowing through the course. They're not thinking about the obstacles; they're just jumping through it. So as Joe's saying, all these amazing athletes are going to keep on smashing it and setting a standard every weekend, isn't it?
That's right.
So with both of you here, what do you think the challenges you've got for obstacle course racing and Spartan in particular you've got over the next year or two? What do you see as your main challenges?
Just growth challenges. It's hard to grow as fast as we're growing and put out a book, and we're working on a documentary, and the idea is just to create a bigger platform so we could reach more people and change more lives. And I had no idea how hard it was to be in 17 countries. I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of challenges, but we're getting it done. They're just obstacles.
Yeah.
We're getting through them.
We're obstacles. We beat them in our mind and we beat them in the park.
Yeah.
How did that come about, Joe? Did they approach you, or did you approach them?
We were really lucky. They approached us. When they first approached, they were not, in our minds, the ideal partner. They're certainly not, the highest level when you think of sportswear. But as we got to know them within the first month, they live this lifestyle. They've got CrossFit gyms right on their campus. They've got that partnership with CrossFit. They're going through a complete transformation. And quite honestly, if we had to do it all over again, Reebok would be the ideal partner. And we would do that because I don't think we would get the attention we get with Reebok with anybody else. They really care about the sport. They really care what we're doing. They created a shoe with us. I mean, who thought in my lifetime I would create a shoe.
Who would have thought I'm a shoe model?
This shoe, by the way, it's going to sound like I'm selling. I'm not. This shoe is awesome. So, and this shoe is awesome for your runners, for our
trail runners.
Yeah, for your trail runners. It's an awesome shoe.
Well, hopefully we will be doing a review shortly. So yeah, we look forward to that. Anything to add to that?
I'm very excited. We've got some great stuff coming up in London to freshen it up with Reebok, and some promotion, some marketing with them. And they bring, you know, Les Mills and CrossFitters to it, and we're looking some gym offs, we're looking some Spartan offs as well. So a lot of fun stuff coming up.
And it's, I mean, the link, say, like with Reebok and CrossFit is huge, because a lot of CrossFit people come to obstacle course racing. It's not just your triathletes or your runners, it's a CrossFit community is quite large. So is there anything special planned really between Spartan and CrossFit coming?
On the HQ levels, we're hitting some bumpy roads, but at the gym level, CrossFit boxes love us.
Yep.
So I think we're working on the HQ communication.
The gym box has just dumped Nike to come over to Reebok and come over to Spartan in the last 5 days in England.
Yeah.
It was a massive deal for us, and we couldn't be more excited. Welcome to the party.
Wow. We've got the Ultra Beast that you set. What was the thinking behind that, and are you going to convince Dan to have one over here?
I'll take that. As you've asked me on the phone, didn't you, about the Ultra Beast? And I said absolutely. When it comes down to the growth question, I do want to be putting an Ultra Beast on. You will be running it if I do and when. In all honesty, I'm looking at probably 2016. In honesty, but we could be bringing in Sports Relief to do something with Sports Relief at that time. But that's you know, very early stages of planning that.
Perfect. Is there anything you'd like to add at all, Joe? Anything you'd like to say, really?
I think all good. I think if you're a little nervous about getting out there and doing it right off the bat, whether you're a couch potato, a triathlete, a runner, pick up the book, read the book, and that'll get you off. It might get you to burn your couch.
Yeah. I think also, just to finish as well, it's really interesting, Spartan, the amount of women that come to you as well, because it's a huge number. Absolutely.
Big numbers. So if you're a single guy, get to a race.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time today, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.